What is the cost of giving into temptation? And what's the benefit of resisting it? You know, I think Oswald Chambers nailed it on that question when he said, impulse is okay with a child, but it is disastrous with a man. Impulse must be trained into intuition through discipline. Now, to his point, men will experience pain when it comes to the whole issue of temptation. They will experience either A, the pain of regret, or they will experience the pain of discipline. And if we don't submit, men, to the pain of discipline, we will experience the other pain, the pain of regret. Now, the culture is not going to tell you the facts about the consequences of giving in to your temptations. Your flesh is not going to tell you the facts about giving in to your temptations. And Satan, he's definitely not going to tell you the facts about giving in to your temptation or what's going to happen if you give in. Now, our brother Michael, a man who recently wrote me, he will tell you the facts. Listen to what he said. He said, "Dear Kenny, I'll just cut to the chase. I recently confessed to having an affair. My wife is now repulsed by me. She doesn't even want me to touch her ever again. I only see my 2 kids twice a week. I have never seen my family broken like this." Now listen to what he says next, men. "Tell your men to learn from my mistake. Your brother, Michael." One of the goals for growth is to become fully aware of the consequences of giving in to temptation. And the key words is fully aware versus what? Marginally aware, partially aware, or at worst, unaware. And part of becoming fully aware is fully realizing the connection between thoughts and actions at the moment a temptation first presents itself. After counseling so many guys who have fallen victim to sexual infidelity, one of the recurring lines used by guys in an attempt to explain what has happened is this: "The temptation, Kenny, was too irresistible." But here's what I find. I find that as I start asking questions, a whole different scenario evolves. So, like just recently, a man came and used this line, and I'll just use a fictitious name. And I began to ask him questions. I said, "So, when did you first see this Jenny?" And he says, "A year ago." "Well, what happened then?" I said to myself, "Wow, she's good looking." And then I asked him, "Well, then what happened?" "Well, then I started kind of trying to stop by her desk." And then I asked him, "What happened next?" "Well, I asked the boss for some administrative support on a project, and I asked that Jenny be the one." "Okay, then what happened?" "Well, then I asked if she could join our team in Vegas for a convention that we were going to." "Okay, then what happened?" "Well, at the convention, after a long day of working, I asked her if she wanted to go with everybody for dinner and drinks." "Okay, so then what happened?" "Well, when we got back to the hotel, I walked her to her room." So what you're telling me is not that the temptation in the moment was too irresistible. What you're telling me is that you made the temptation irresistible by accepting mental suggestions along the way, indulging in these little mental happy meals, building mental scenarios, which produced real scenarios over a 12-month period of time, which led to a moment where you stepped into quicksand that you poured. Now, let's look at what the Bible says regarding the key to defeating temptation. It's in 1 Corinthians 10:13, and it says this: "The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. And when you are tempted, He will show you a way out so that you can endure." So the Bible teaches that there is no such thing as an irresistible temptation if we deal with the pressure when it first comes versus letting it build up. And the way we make temptations irresistible is we don't accept the pain of disciplining ourselves mentally and installing some personal boundaries when it comes to your eyes and to your mind. Now, if there's one area where men need to have some boundaries, it's in the realm of the eyes and the mind. And let me tell you what boundaries are. Boundaries are simply predetermined rules we submit ourselves to that keep us from the edge of the cliff. A perfect example is when my son Ryan and I were watching football one weekend, and then a beer commercial came on. And in the beer commercial was, of course, women in bikinis dancing in the snow. And I remember looking away from the TV to my son, just like this. And I said, "Hey, Ryan, how's it going? How you doing? What's going on?" And my son Ryan looked at me and he said, "Dad, what are you doing?" And I looked back at him and I said, "Son, there's things on the TV that don't honor God and don't honor your mom. Will you just help me out? And will you talk with me just for a minute or two?" And he looks back at me and he's kind of scratching his head like, "Okay." And then the moment was over. And then 2 weeks later, I am upstairs in the house and Ryan is downstairs watching football with his sister. The same commercial comes on. And I hear downstairs Ryan go, "Hey, Kara, what's going on? How you doing? How's it going?" And I just broke into spontaneous laughter, but then I almost started crying because my son is learning through me having a personal rule about managing my eyes and mind just in the normal flow of life. He is learning to choose God's way out by resisting temptation by refocusing his eyes. Now, temptation, men, always comes in through a door that we intentionally leave unlocked and unaddressed. And that is why our key verse is talking about that when it says in James chapter 1, verse 15. It says, "Then when lust has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death." Now, when we take a look at that key verse, the picture James presents is one of conception, where there is this fertilization in your mind of an idea for self-gratification. And that idea begins to grow and it begins to develop inside of a man. And once that mental fertilization starts, it is very difficult to stop the process from moving forward and giving birth to sin. So, a good boundary does not allow that temptation to be fertilized by adding desire. Okay? And if God's commands represent the edge of the cliff, then boundaries are those predetermined convictions that you have that act sort of as guardrails that keep you from getting close to the edge. And this is what we mean when we talk about the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. In order to achieve sexual integrity, you gotta have predetermined boundaries or rules that you live by, that define you. And these rules that you have say who you are and who you are not going to be. They say that you're God's man and not a slave to your appetites. And those rules decide for you where you can go and can't go with your eyes and with your mind. They are like bright fluorescent lines that can't be crossed that make your struggle real and put your struggle into the open versus simply, and this is what a lot of guys do, having the struggle just kind of remain in their mind, okay? You know another good thing these boundaries do? They starve the wrong desires and feed the right desires. You know what else they do? Good boundaries remove pressure by removing you early in the game from tempting situations, and they point a clear way out immediately versus what? Versus letting you debate which way you're going to take out. Now, the Bible says that we all need some good rules in our lives that serve to protect us from you know who, ourselves. Listen to the writer of Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 16. Listen to what he says. He says, "Keep the rules and keep your life. Careless living kills." Reflect seriously on where you stand with your own sexual boundaries. And I want you to think about some new personal rules for your eyes and mind to keep you off the edge and to keep you on track.